To kick things off, can we begin? Do you think the next general election will be a de facto referendum on net zero?
It'll be a massive part. Net zero will be a huge part of it. I've now triggered a sort of a new 3-word slogan, net stupid zero. We get people opening the door when we're campaigning saying, yes, it's you, net stupid zero, you're quite right. So it'll be a big part of it, and alongside immigration and the cost of living. I think those will be the 3 big things. And of course it slightly depends when the election is and the state of the government's finances that dictates which is first.
And you mentioned cost of living there. Energy bills comes up all the time. What's your commitment in terms of lowering people's energy bills? How much do you want to lower Britain's household bills by?
As much as possible, and the only way you can do that is by scrapping net zero and attacking the huge multi-billion subsidies, which are now somewhere between 12 and 15 billion and rising. The most important first thing we can do is, which we've already done, we've written to shareholders and investors in these renewables. We've said don't bid on this current round of subsidies for more renewables. So in a sense, we've got to see what's the state. But the moment you scrap it and you stop this ludicrous self-inflicted damage, then we can stop the rot.
And you said,
and then the quicker that we can issue oil and gas licenses and increase confidence in that, it's not going to be overnight, but it's even just stopping the rate of growth would be a massive moment. And getting rid of a whole load of ridiculous carbon taxes, green credits, policy costs, all of this nonsense, that would get rid of immediately.
And as much as possible, how soon? And so Labour's had the £300 commitment,
which they've essentially they've now resigned from.
Yes, it doesn't look like they're going to reach that. Is Reform going to make a similar commitment? Are you going to put a number on how much people can expect the energy bills to drop?
It's too early to say because we don't know the state of where these subsidies are going to get to. But we have said we will look at potentially imposing windfall tax on the wind taxes, and the wind farms, and that cannot be passed on to the consumers. So that would be like in a sense, reverse the windfall tax on oil and gas and stick it on the renewable operators. That would be, if we can do that, that would be the one of the quickest ways, and pass that straight back on to the consumer. So all of this stuff we've got to dig into, and they're not going to be thrilled.
How much do you think you'll raise from the taxes on renewables?
Billions.
Billions?
Yeah. We've got to raise billions in order to make a difference. And
goal number?
We're not giving a specific number, but in a sense, as much as possible. And it'll probably they'll end up being a hell of a row. And we've just got to push as hard as we can. I'm negotiating on behalf of the taxpayer. The renewables, they've had it off. They've had a massive gravy train for a decade or so, and we've got to stop it.
Sounds like you're up for the fight.
We are.
And then in terms of pylons,
yes.
So I think Reform's policy is to underground, for it to always be undergrounded. Are you confident that that's not going to add any costs onto bills?
Here's my confidence. In my constituency, National Grid are putting a bunch of cables underground, and right next door, they're putting a bunch of pylons. So if they can afford to put them underground, why aren't they putting them all underground? It's completely illogical. I would actually rather. There's a report out that shows that in the medium term, there's no extra cost. When you take account of the compensation that National Grid have to pay to people close to the pylons because of the massive down valuation of their properties, and that actually the cost would be no more. Also, technology is changing rapidly. If you use different cables, you can get more electricity through those cables. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. But I've met National Grid on a number of occasions, and I've said, put them underground. Otherwise, we will look to legislate to force you to put them underground at the cost of your shareholders, not at the cost of the consumer. The biggest preference actually is to put them offshore as they come around to the places of population, whether it's London or through the Wash. To which their response is, well, we can't do that because of the birds. To which my response is actually, if you talk about looking after the environment, what's more important? Looking after a few birds in the Wash, or actually protecting the countryside and environment around the inside the coastline, all down Lincolnshire, Suffolk and Norfolk and many other places. And let me tell you, every time I talk about that, everyone says, look after our countryside, not the birds in the wash.
Okay, interesting. And then in terms of
So that's a row with the Environment Agency and various others.
Yes. And the pylons that do come up in let's say the next 2, 3, 4 years or so, would you look to get those demolished? Or would, like an existing pylons, would you look for those to be underground?
No, so the existing ones,
Or
but what we said back in, I think it was February this year, we said if any more pylons built from now, you should expect us to be looking to you to take them down.
Okay.
So don't waste your money in the first place. And I'm not sure they quite took us seriously at the moment. I think they're taking us a lot more seriously now.
Okay. And then on to fracking.
Shale gas.
Yes.
Shale gas is the asset under our feet.
Yes. Would you back it for the northwest of England?
The principle of using the energy treasure under our feet is, I mean, it's totally logical. It's negligent. It's grossly negligent not to try and establish how much is down there and how easy is it to extract. Now, geologists have different views. There's a view as to whether or not Lancashire's geology is as good as other areas of geology, such as North Lincolnshire, where there's been a recent find, and there's been a huge amount of misinformation. Financed, it turns out, serious allegations it was financed by Russia through America into the UK, which, by the way, the anti-fracking organisations have not properly denied or proven that it wasn't. So, bluntly, they have taken it, in my view, my allegation is they've taken Russian money, and Russia's interest, of course, pre-Ukraine, was for us not to have more gas so they could sell us more gas. And when you look at the seismicity issues, it's really important this. So when you stand up and move that chair back, you create a mini earthquake. Not that scary. It's about 0.5. That's the sort of seismicity that we were talking about when supposed issues occurred at the first well that was being drilled. Now, my suggestion is people are anxious because of the misinformation. So why don't we have a couple of independently monitored and supervised wells in different locations outside Lancashire, because that's obviously sensitive, and prove the quantities there that the energy companies are think there, and prove that you can do it in a way where you can take all the readings, independently supervised, and then everyone can calm down and relax.
How many would you want in that exploratory phase? How much
have a discussion about it. I mean, I've said a couple, but actually people might chew it over and say, well, maybe we should have half a dozen in a bunch more areas, and come up with a way of just calming down the tone of the debate. And here's the point that no one has been talking about. Fracking is a method of extracting shale gas. There are other newer methods that evolve because technology evolves, and so we should look at that, and we should call that something different. And what happens if, let's say, one of those other technologies, right, that is a variant way of extracting it, that works a treat. People might say, well, okay, I'm more relaxed now. Thanks for calming me down. Please just use that method, not the older method.
Would you potentially be up for a fight potentially with reform councillors if they're against it?
Well, that's the joy of democracy, is people have different views. The way to avoid any such fights is to have these independently monitored wells in a couple of areas, and that then hopefully informs everybody. And look, if I'm wrong, it'll be on the basis, I think, not of the extraction method. It'll be that actually there's not the quantities down there that people thought. That's the area that I'm possibly most at risk. Let's look. If you don't look, you've got no idea.
And will you look to do that as soon as reform were to enter government?
We've told the oil and gas companies, get your applications ready and go for it. Yeah, look, there'll be some protests. That's the nature of a democracy, lawful and peaceful.
And then in terms of coal mines, might also be a fight there. Would you
I don't think there is a fight there. I think Cumbria is well up for the Whitehaven coal mine. As far as I understand, the only sort of fight was from Wally's and Westminster, like Ed Miliband.
So would that be the first one to reopen?
And the lies that were told about the suitability of that, if you blend that coal with other coal of different sulphur content, then British Steel are all up for it. There's literally letters from British Steel supporting that coal mine application.
Okay, interesting. And then for nature, you mentioned birds earlier. UK is one of the most nature depleted countries in the world, and you talk about net zero a lot.
I don't accept that.
Okay. Why?
Why do you think the UK is one of the most nature depleted? You look at our countryside, look at our environment. It's incredible. It's absolutely remarkable. You know, I've spent loads of times on the islands. Oh, we can always improve on everything we do. That's called progress.
But species have declined or disappeared for a range of reasons.
Dinosaurs disappeared. I mean, that's called evolution. And there's areas where we can be, but there are many areas where actually there's no point making the British people poorer in order to try and protect the odd bird species that may or may not be in decline for other reasons. I think actually we at Reform, we're great conservationists, we're great environmentalists, but it's the British countryside that we want to protect. And by the way, it doesn't help internationally if you are so obsessed with the eco-zealotry that you're digging out huge mines, whether it's in Chile or elsewhere, using slave labour and appalling conditions. That's green colonialism. That's not environmentally on an international basis, and I don't think covering Lincolnshire with 150 square miles of solar farms is environmentally sensitive or protective of our environment.
And then final question, Dream Environment Secretary. So I know Farage just said he wants to bring in people with expertise. Who would you put in to fill that, to see that role?
Let's just get in government first, and then Nigel will have
someone in
some jobs.
mind.
No, I'm just focusing on winning all these arguments so that people vote for us.